You can have my copies.
I have an extra.
And there are extras up here.
I have an extra. It's good.
Okay, so we have, this is our committee of the whole meeting.
Is Joe ready? Did you check with him?
Yep, he's good. Okay. So, it has been brought to my attention, and also me bringing it to my own attention, our meetings are going very, very long. Like, we're upwards of almost 4 hours every other week. So I put together some ideas of where we could have a discussion tonight, maybe come to a consensus and bring it back to council on where we could hone it in, okay? So one of the things that jumps out at me that I would love to talk about is our guest speaker situation. So as much as I love, and I know you guys love it too, having a guest speaker come and speak to us, sometimes they take a long time. And I've tried to talk to them about, different things about like how lengthy they're going to be. Some of them bring half-an-hour presentations. Then they have room for question and answer. And by that point, there might be 2 speakers that night, so we might be upwards of an hour and a half just on the guest speaker portion. So I was wondering if I could open up the floor to everybody's idea on this section, the guest speaker.
Madam Chair, President.
And this is a committee meeting. You guys, I'm opening up the floor. You don't have to recognize me. You can just, I want to hear ideas. This is a committee meeting.
Okay, I was just
Yep, you're
trying
good.
to
I appreciate you.
maintain
I'm letting it.
some sort of order, even.
I know.
So we're not all
it's clear.
talking at once here. Okay, so this issue first came to the attention of the Rules and Public Policy Committee on, I believe it was May 4th, and it was assigned to this committee at that time. I started cobbling together some procedures that other municipalities use for their guest speakers, and had started drafting a procedure, which I was not finished with.
Okay.
Because I was intending to present it at our June 8th committee meeting. So the members of this committee have a draft, and it's an outline, basically. It's, like I said, it's kind of a consolidation of multiple cities that I benchmarked.
Can you summarize for us?
In terms of how they handle guest speakers. So there's a procedure for submitting a guest speaker. This is council's meeting. I think we all need to just
Yes.
get that on the floor. This is council's meeting. So primarily anything that we discuss or anything that's presented here should relate to city business in some
Yes.
capacity, or updating council on something where that we need to know. Other officials come here as part of their official duties to update council on things that are going on in their wheelhouse. So that is, I believe, appropriate. So, but they submit their information, presenter's name, affiliation, contact information, purpose of the presentation, estimated time, et cetera, et cetera. And then I had who reviews and approves these submissions, placement on the agenda, and then from there, the communication happens with the clerk. If there's any handouts or materials, they have to be submitted in advance. If there's any audiovisual needs, we have to know that in advance. And if there's any time limits that we, because this is our meeting, impose, then they would need to comply with that, or we would need as a body to approve an exception to that. And they need to be made aware, because not all members of the public may be aware, that whatever they say with us or distribute to us becomes a matter of public record. Members of the public may not know that if they're coming to present to us. So, I mean, not in terms of just the regular public comment, but if there's something that they would like to share, they may not, it's just an awareness. And then on the page 2 of what I sent to everybody, and I did quite a bit of research on this because I was just trying to be very thorough. Ohio law is very clear. We cannot use public funds, public property, public personnel or other public resources to support or oppose the election or defeat of a candidate, political party, levy, bond issue, or ballot measure. We can present informational, factual, here's what this levy is asking for, here is factual information about how much it would cost, et cetera. But we and our public speakers cannot use this platform to promote the passage or defeat or support of any specific anything, because these are public, this is a public sphere. And tax dollars are paying for this. So that's
So,
kind
Ms.
of a
Clear,
summary of what I had written out here for everyone.
Ms. Clear, can I interrupt you for 1 second? So to go back to, I don't know if this was our first guest speaker, but it was near the beginning, was when Mr. Blaylock came and was talking about the levy for the school.
That might have been when I was on vacation. I do remember watching that video, but I think I was out for that particular
Everyone else can
meeting.
chime in, so.
Madam President, so
Aston.
what I'm understanding is, if I'll just use Dr. Blaylock as an example, he did not tell us how to vote, but he came and he gave us the information.
Correct.
That way all of council can know, so on and so forth. But on the flip side, there was a candidate that came who was on the ballot and was saying why she should get our vote and what makes her different from her opposition. So I feel like those two are different, and that would land in what you are referring to, coming in using public spaces to campaign technically. So is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, and I did cite the applicable Ohio Revised Code
Okay.
on the draft that I sent you all.
Well, what
and this
I'm
is just, like I said, this is just a laundry list of stuff that I had consolidated, but I did do quite a bit of research on what was permitted versus not,
I like
since
it.
this is a public forum.
I like it. I
So
think you
one
did a great
thing,
job.
I do know when Mr. Blaylock was here, I think it was mentioned at some point during the conversation about certain entities that were currently holding elected office that might need or not need to be voted out. And I know there's times where we appear, maybe during our call of members, a couple of us may have mentioned political things. So maybe it might behoove us when have our guest speakers contact us to have like a template back to them stating, this is what our rules are. Please try to, mention the political thing, mention all our guidelines, so they know ahead of time before they come and speak to us what our expectations are. So it might be helpful to have a template, like an email template or something that the clerk, like if, they let us know, she can send it back to them and recognize them and saying, oh, okay, you want to speak, these are our expectations. What's your thoughts?
I think, Madam President, I think that's a really good idea. I really appreciate the hard work that Ms. Clear
do too.
has done. I don't know if she has the capacity to create that for us. Totally up to you, but I think that it would be really great if you would take the lead on this, because I think that is important to have.
Yeah, and maybe work with the clerk.
And please poke holes in this process if you
Oh, yeah,
see
we're
it,
poking
because this is the consolidation of one person's work. So the whole reason we're here is this is a committee. So if anyone else has any input,
So,
we are kind of constrained by Ohio law to a certain degree of how we can use public resources. That's a given. But just if anyone else has some concern, maybe the timing, how far in advance it needs to be submitted, et cetera, please poke holes in this. I want to hear from everybody else.
So, I'm sorry, Madam President.
Ms. Orb, go ahead.
So, I again, I want to
This
beat
is
it.
great.
I do appreciate this very, very, very much. But can we just start with number one and everyone talk about number one? And
Yeah, sure.
Then
Let's
just
do it.
Let's just start dissecting this instead of talking ambiguously, and let's just
Yes, let's
start
go.
moving.
Number one. Ms. Orb, you want to start the dissection?
Sure. I don't think that I have a problem with number one unless somebody wants to convince me otherwise.
Madam President, I do have a question.
Ms. Gaston?
So submission of requests, it says council members, city administration, the mayor, or department heads may submit a request to add a guest speaker. So I want to make sure that we're all clear who submits it, or we know who submits it, but to whom is this going to be received from, or to, whatever.
That's a
I'm trying to
good
say.
point. So the submission of the request, I think that if, say any of the number, like council members, somehow we got to word this a little bit different, but basically, if any of these people named above receive a request or from an outside party who would like to speak to us during council, then that should be submitted in a certain format to, I think, the clerk of council and CCing the president of council.
Okay.
Should we
I
combine
agree.
1 and 3 then? Because 3 kind of talks a little bit about that. Like I said, it was kind of a brain dump.
Oh, that's a good question. Okay, so I see the city manager and mayor review all requests from department heads for relevance, important. Okay. The president of council review all requests. I just want to make sure I know who approves it and at what length of time do they have to submit their request.
So here's the thing, and I want to bring this up too, and because one of the other things that I think we can hone in is we do a lot of amendments sometimes on Monday evenings or sometimes Tuesday. So one of the things, and this is what I wanted to bring out there to bounce off you guys, is that, say, as an example, the public speaker portion, where Ms. Stagman, if I can use you as an example. All right. So last week, or a couple weeks ago, Ms. Stagman emailed stating that she would like to speak, and she wanted to have more than, because she wanted to have more than 3 minutes. She emailed, so she got 5. So we didn't put her name on the agenda under public speaker. We just knew, the clerk and I knew that she had emailed us, and that when she spoke, she would get more than 3 minutes because she emailed. My suggestion is that the guest speaker portion of the agenda is a section just as much as the public speaker. So let's say the agenda is done by the clerk on Thursday night. It's got a bow on it. It's ready to go for Monday morning, right? She sent it out to everybody. And I'm saying that I feel like the guest speakers can let us know by Friday, because I do not feel, unless you convince me otherwise, that we need to amend the agenda to add guest speakers. I think we can just leave it as a guest speaker section, and that would be something that the clerk would bring up when we, like, for instance, when I'm speaking to the clerk about the public speaker portion, and I've said, Ms. Clear, has anybody signed in, or has anybody emailed? It would be the same thing for the guest speaker. Ms. Clear, has anybody communicated for the guest speaker portion? She would say, yes, Joe Schmo, da 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 da. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if we necessarily need a amendment.
Madam President,
Ms. Alexander?
so you're saying that when Ms. Clear has the agenda already ready, we give our guest speaker an extra day. How will that work? Will they then receive that template right then and there? And is Friday the cutoff for a Monday meeting for anyone to get 5 minutes?
No.
No,
Nope.
so the 5 minutes for the public speaker portion is 24 hours, if I'm not correct.
Okay.
Madam President.
Ms. Gaston?
Is it?
Okay, so
Yeah, Linda.
this is just my opinion. What I believe is if there is a guest speaker, I'll just Metro or UDF, whoever wants to come and speak to council, and they are invited by whomever, I feel that should be a 2-week notification, because sometimes we have a lot of legislation to get through. There is an executive session. So if Ms. Clear has sent out the agenda Thursday night prior to Monday, and they have till Friday, there's not enough time to adjust whatever it is, because again, this is council's meeting and we have a lot of business to get done. So I feel respectfully, if a guest speaker is going to come and speak for 15, 20, 30 minutes, however much time you feel that you will allot them, that needs to be known ahead of time so that we can schedule that, because we are trying to cut down on 2.5, 3.5 hour meetings. So I feel that it should be a 2-week notification.
I'm not against a 2-week notification. I'm just saying the Friday before, like Friday. like say, they have until today being Friday to let us know in 2 weeks I'm fine with the 2 weeks. I think that's a great idea because, like you were saying, we have legislation that we have to do, and we have to kind of balance this all around. I'm fine with 2 weeks. I think that's fine. Ms. Chichester, what do you think over there? You're being very silent. I want to make sure everybody has thoughts.
I think 2 weeks in certain professional spaces is a little extensive. So maybe shorten it down to more than 7 days before our council meeting. We're going into summer session, right? So if someone misses our meeting on Monday, then they have to wait till July. And sometimes that can hinder city business if there's things that need to be talked about, or you guys want someone to come and speak on any certain topics, if it's a building or if it's ordinances or anything that happens within the city. So say something happens over the weekend and we might want someone to come and speak about it on Monday. Now we're really constrained by these new rules. Do we really want to limit ourselves?
Madam President,
Ms. Gaston?
I think the best thing about being on council is if someone wants to amend the agenda, we vote on amending the agenda. If there is something that happens over the weekend and we want someone to come and speak to that, then we can vote to have that happen. But I think to make sure that we have consistency and respect for our agenda, 2 weeks is enough time. And if there is some extenuating circumstance where we have to add them in short notice, we can vote to add that then.
Madam President,
Ms. Chichester?
then why are we wasting our time changing the rules if we're just going to go back to the same status quo of being able to amend the agenda?
Madam
And then
Chair.
who says what is amendable and what's not? That's not really a fair rule if we're holding certain people to certain standards and not others. That really becomes very conflicting and can show some type of favoritism.
Ms. Gaston?
Out of respect for council's agenda, I think everyone should understand that there is a time limit or a time expectation to get your submission in. If there is some type of an emergency or something that is time sensitive, then we can determine that then. But I strongly believe that if we have a packed agenda, because let's just say, for example, we're going into summer session, and then there's a guest speaker that wants to talk about something that is not time sensitive, then it can wait to the next committee meeting so that we can conduct business.
So listening to
Madam
the
President, may I
one
have
second, let me just get this out before I lose it. One thing it seems like the both of you are mentioning is the fact of between the 1 week and the 2 week is the fact of that it might be showing preferential treatment if you're giving somebody like, oh, I can hurry you along if you know, whatever. But I do see where you're coming from, Ms. Gaston, on the fact of a time sense, if there's something that's said by the guest speaker or by the administration on their behalf or us on the behalf, because we can also put guest speakers on there, is saying, okay, Metro contacted me. I'm just going to use me as a pretend, whatever. Metro contacted me because I'm head of safety and they had an issue. They wanted something that was time sensitive and they needed to speak as soon as possible. They can't wait the 2 weeks. So I'd like to hypothetically make a motion to council to amend the agenda to add them for tonight because of this time sensitive. I think it definitely, I understand where you're coming from about the preferential treatment, but I think if we elaborate and make sure it's known that the reason that they're being a motion through is because of a time sensitive manner, because I don't want anybody feeling like any kind of preferential treatment, but I think that it's important, that, like we're doing tonight, we got to get this, tightened up a bit. If we mention that it's time sensitive, I think that's appropriate. Ms.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. She had mentioned before you, and then I'll come right back to you.
Thank you.
So I have two things. First of all, I think we're spending way too much time on this one silly little topic. Second thing, Ms. Clear, you said you've done extensive work. Was there any standard out there
If I can
Yeah,
respond
sure.
before, okay, thank you. I think generally speaking, if someone is just coming to provide an update to council in the course of their normal course of business, for example, the person who came and spoke with us about the lead abatement, they had 2 months' notice, right? So I think if someone's coming just generally to give us an update, they understand that they're going to have to fit in with whatever schedule. They're seeing multiple municipalities. They're not just seeing us. I think that there's always the rule and then there's the exception.
Correct.
So the rule can be, but the exception would be, and I think if collectively as a body, we are voting to approve the exception because we feel that it's necessary, then I think that that's okay in the course of our normal business. But I don't think that allowing anything at the last minute, therefore, needs to be the rule. I think the rule needs to be, we as a body, we've got to get our meetings under control. And that's, to answer your question, that was pretty much, there was always some kind of an advanced notification. And normally, I mean, even we first started talking about the lead abatement in, gosh, January or February. And we said that April might be the best time frame to do that. And they were fine with that because it wasn't anything that required any, you're remembering that. So it wasn't anything that required anything time sensitive. But I think as a rule, just so we can plan ahead, so we know, do we need to have the TV in here? You know, on a Friday, if we're not finding out until that might be tricky to get that organized, you know. So I don't think that's going to be necessarily what happens all the time. I think most of the time it's going to be people talking to us in a professional capacity. And if that's the case, the rule, generally what I saw in other cities that I benchmarked was at least 10 business days, 2 weeks, something like that was reasonable.
Great.
Okay. Ms. Zorb, you had a second question?
No, it was 2 comments. One was we're taking too much time on this, and,
Oh,
now we're taking even more time on it.
Okay. So,
And what was the-
Ms. Chichester, I'm going to do you real
We
quick.
can move along.
Okay. Mr. Davis, did you have anything to comment on this part?
Now, it feels as if we're trying to codify inflexibility in the law, because the thing that we've had, the issue that was felt with because how do I say this? I don't feel that anybody's come up here to speak with us that wasn't providing something worthwhile or helpful for city business. Like we're saying like, okay, these people are coming to us with information that's going to help us do our duty, help us do our job better. Man, we're saying, you know what? We're closing ourselves out. We're closing ourselves off to that information. We're closing ourselves off to two voices from the people. That turns us into a bit of an inflexible body. And when we're less flexible, people get to start making narratives about ourselves. It's one of those things where. And we can't at the same time say that we're the transparency council, but then also say, okay, you didn't do this like this, so now you can't speak before us. That doesn't, like, those don't match with one another. You understand what I'm saying? If you disagree, why do you disagree?
So, Mr. Davis, not to disagree with you at all, but I see where you're coming from, but there is at least one time, and I think it was when you weren't here, we had somebody who came in strictly to campaign, and they didn't really have anything to do with the city business.
That was that was a question from going back to that. Now, are judgeships considered political offices?
Yes?
Yes.
It's an elected
If they're
position.
telling us that they vote because their candidate is, that is totally campaigning.
Okay,
Yeah.
because
If their
that's
opponent is, no, you don't want to, my opponent this, my opponent that, that's.
Because that's one of those when we were discussing that earlier, the people the people that I would have considered questionable and said like this doesn't, like, they don't, like, this doesn't need 10 minutes, this could have been done in 3. It were generally
Or an
people
email.
running for judgeships. Like, you know, the things that like for example, something like what Blake did. Like I said, that's an economic issue. That's a direct city. You know, that directly affects everyone in the city. Like, that needs to,
But
like,
but even him, he cannot stand there and say, vote for the levy.
and he didn't.
She did not.
I'm not saying he did, I'm just saying even in that particular scenario.
Right.
He's
But
not allowed to do that, just like the judge
He would have
can't
known
say.
better than to do that.
Right.
Correct.
And that's the issue too.
Yes.
It's like typically, they should know better.
But we also,
But
but just saying that,
But he
we
didn't.
also
Like, he
have to
didn't.
remember, guys, we also have to remember, and I know, I'm not gonna point out, but I know there's certain council members that have also mentioned of, remember in November, these people, you know, I mean, I think we need to remember what Ms. Clear had mentioned about the politicalness of this, that we need to kind of not default on that. So let's.
can we get
okay,
back
so-
to this, the 10
Well, what
can
I
we-
was gonna say was, so are we on the review and approval? Are we good with that fact of if we, to have it all go through one place, if anyone has somebody that comes to them that would like to speak as a guest speaker, that they direct them to the clerk of council and CC the president of council?
Yep.
Are we
Yes.
sticking with 10 days, 2 weeks?
I'm fine with 10 days,
10
2
business
weeks.
days is too.
I think we could put in there unless it's an emergency measure.
Unless it's, agree.
Okay.
Just the
So-
same way
Unless
we
it's
would,
time
it's the
sensitive.
same way
Unless
we would
time
do
sensitive.
anything
Time
else that's an
sensitive.
emergency.
So are we saying 2 weeks or 10 days?
Just
It's the same
to
thing
to
if
be
it's
clear,
business
though,
day.
who determines the emergency?
Well,
It's gonna be
council
on-
rules already state that we can't amend the agenda unless for certain reasons, and that would be the discretion of the president of council to
right.
decide if they're going to allow a vote on it.
Okay, so the president of council determines if it's an emergency and.
To allow a vote, yeah.
Okay.
And
It's
then,
already in our rules.
are we, did we say 10 days?
Yes.
Okay, 10
business
days.
Business days.
10 business days,
In or out of session.
in or out of session. And unless it is time sensitive.
Upon the approval of the president.
Okay, I'm good with that. All right. Then, can we talk about the length of time they can talk?
Yes,
What's your thoughts on that?
10 to 15 minutes.
Madam President,
Ms. Chichester?
what if there's like a presentation high level that needs to be presented, such as like when Metro came or the organization in College Hill was talking about those businesses? I think those took a little longer than 15 minutes to get through, and council even had extensive questions afterwards.
So just taking the questions and answer part out of it, just the presentation itself, can we use Metro as an example, since you mentioned it? They should know ahead of time.
Susie, make sure you're in the microphone, please. Sorry, Miss Whitler's mic. Sorry, President, whoever you are tonight. You make sure you're talking in the microphone.
Or-
Sorry.
No problem. So, Metro should know that ahead of time. Like, for instance, when I spoke to the lady that was the Department of, she was the one that was handling, like, human, I can't think of what department she was, but I asked her and she said she had a half an hour presentation. So they know that they have a
Reynolds
lengthy
County Auditor.
presentation.
Right, so.
So if they ahead of time say, hey, you know, I'm giving you 10 business days, we have a presentation that's going to be approximately 30 minutes, like the lady that I spoke to, that I can't remember who she worked for. I think that would have to be something that would have, again, would come to the president of council, and then the president of council would then bring that to council as a motion, saying, hey, you know, we have booked this lady tonight, or Metro tonight, and they have stated that they have, instead of the allotted 15 minutes, they say it's gonna be 25.
So what if we say no?
True?
Madam President.
Well, actually, that's a really good point, because I think that at some point, we have to limit the quantity. Like, how many people, how many guest speakers can we have in one night?
Madam President.
Ms. Gaston?
It goes back to the 10 days. So if we have a guest speaker that is coming and they need 30 minutes, we're not going to have 3 guest speakers that
Right.
need 30 minutes. So that's all in the planning and organizing of our agenda. So if they need 30 minutes and they're the only one that is coming, then I would be okay with that. of course, it's up to
Like
you.
booking, basically.
Yeah,
So if
depending on the
if
speaker.
so
Madam
if
Chair.
Metro is coming and we know that they're gonna need a half an hour, we'll just have to make sure on that night that no other guest speakers can talk or there, and we just kind of give them the space they need. Ms. Zorb, you have a head shake in my direction?
I don't agree with that. I
All
think
right, please tell
it
me
should
what
be
you
a
disagree.
rule, and it's a rule, and it's a rule. I don't
It's gonna
think,
jumble up.
yeah, you set the expectations. I'm a firm believer in setting expectations.
So what do
So
we
if
do
we
if
set their
somebody's-
expectations, say you have a 15-minute limit, you have a 10-minute limit. If you want question and answers, you have 15 minutes if you want, you have a 10-minute limit if you want to present, and you can have 15 minutes if you want question and answer. And at 15, they're done.
Madam President,
That's what I think.
Ms. Chichester?
so let me understand. Anyone, no matter what the professional space, organization, presentation, it's 15 minutes, no matter what?
Yeah.
I think that's kind of short.
I think it's short too.
I disagree, because there are going to be some high-level important presentations that come through our city, and you can't always explain certain things in 15 minutes.
Madam
Like when
President.
we've
I think
had
they can.
contractors
I think if
come.
they know that ahead of time, they can.
But
Madam-
are you really getting this full scope and view of the presentation or
No.
anything in the 15 minutes? Because that seems kind of, could be rushed.
Okay. Ms. Clear?
I'm wondering if we can meet somewhere in the middle
Okay.
on
What's your
this,
idea?
as the standard, I don't know, 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes, including time for questions. But if they're submitting it to us ahead of time, what we can do also, if we know we've got a ton of legislation coming through, it's like, you know what? This piece of legislation can wait for a first reading until this. And if I know ahead of time, I had new business and it might take 10 minutes for us to discuss, I can wait on that. But, so we can, that gives us the opportunity, to know ahead of time if we're going to have a time-consuming, very detailed presentation, because frankly, if somebody's giving us that much information, it takes 10, 20, 30 minutes to relay it to us, and then we have questions, and then we've got all this heavy stuff on the agenda after that, that's a lot of mental energy.
Absolutely.
So I think just in terms of being able to balance what we have coming up, that's part of the reason if we know ahead of time, hey, everybody heads up, this is going to be a long presentation, we can plan accordingly. Or we can just expect this is going to be a longer meeting because we also have this other stuff that we need to go through. Maybe we plan a recess in the middle of the meeting for 5 minutes, right? Or something, but we can plan accordingly is the idea if we know ahead of time it might be a long or a detailed presentation. But we can't make that decision on Friday night or Monday night to say, okay, oh my goodness, we're going to be here for another hour.
Also,
So that's I think what we're trying to avoid is that scenario as well.
Yes.
Also, one thing I want to mention too is just to throw it out there as an idea. So let's say we have Metro, just keep using that example. Metro comes, they have a 25-minute presentation. We knew about it ahead of time. We kind of worked it to where they had their time. We made sure there's no speakers that night. But we could have another 25 minutes of conversation or back and forth questions. As an idea, I'm not saying, I'm a full proponent of questions. I think that that's part of the reason why we're here. I think that we're asking questions for our constituents. But if it's something that's becoming lengthy, is there something to be said of, if we can have a couple questions, but really you need to touch base after the meeting, like directly with the guest speaker. If you have questions, if the guest speaker Metro would leave your information here, that if we have any questions, we can contact you directly, and then,
Bring that to the next council meeting.
Yes,
I
and-
followed up with them after, and here's
Yes.
some more information that they shared.
Yes, and then that way our questions aren't, adding on. You know what I'm saying?
Madam President,
Ms. Alexander?
I think 20 minutes is somewhere in the middle, because sometimes they have things that they pass out. And I might need to read it, along with those questions, and maybe limit, hey, 2 questions per council member. And once again, if you have more questions, connect back. And then, you know, we can, like you said, the follow-up coming back the next time, you know, and we can, you know, tell everybody what the additional question was. But I think 10 to 15 is just too short.
Agreed.
And we can, this is not set in concrete either. This is new for us. So as with any new process, we can try it and we can fine tune.
All right,
Also-
Madam President.
Ms. Orr.
So, I mentioned this before, so let's go back to, if we're talking about 20 minutes, let's just say, use that as our scenario. We're going to give the guest speaker 20 minutes, and then there's probably 20 minutes of questions, because we like to ask questions. And then now that guest speaker sits down and the next one gets up, and now, so we've just added an hour and 10 minutes to our meeting.
Who said
But
there was a
when we-
second one?
Okay, so that's where I'm going. Are we, back to my other question before, is quantity. So are we limiting the number of guest speakers we can have in an evening?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Because
so it's one.
if we're going to 20 minutes up from 15, I think one.
All right, and there's no, I'm giving up my time for Susie Smith to be a guest speaker tonight. Are
Madam
we
Chair,
no,
limiting
he-
that too?
Madam President.
Because that happens also.
Ms. Clear?
I think that that is part of a necessary element of a council meeting, is to receive reports from either council members and administration, and that should never be waived in terms of allowing time for a guest speaker, because it is critically important for us to be updated on the affairs of the city, and they cannot yield their time to a guest speaker just because we have not allowed time for that on this particular agenda. That is my opinion. It is critically important that we receive those updates so that we can do our jobs.
Agreed.
That is part of the core of a council meeting. And if we know ahead of time, we can communicate with this person and say, hey, what can you push from the August or the September 8th meeting to September 22? Would that work for you? And that gives us time to have those conversations. But I think yielding time, this isn't Congress, we can yield time to the other participant. You know, it is critically important that we get those updates. And that's not something that I think should ever be waived in terms of a guest speaker. That's my opinion.
I'm in agreement with that, but I think it needs to be listed out in the
Yep.
rules that we are, because this is council's meeting.
Right,
So
so somewhere
I think
under number 7, conduct of business, which is a legitimate rule that we're discussing today, mayor's report, things like that, we can't yield time.
Right. I just think it needs to be, if that's what you all feel needs to happen, then that needs to be listed out specifically.
Madam President,
Ms. Alexander?
if we are agreeing that just one speaker is going to speak, that's just it. I mean, you don't have to even address the whole yielding of time, because the rule is one.
Madam President,
Madam.
I'll let Mr. Davis go.
Mr. Davis?
So would other people, would other people, like, if somebody else comes up, would they still be able to get these citizen 3 minutes?
Oh, yeah. That says
Or
nothing.
could-
Citizen comment is different
Oh, yeah.
from a presentation.
Or could, or maybe we could also, or could it just be a matter of where we get everybody gets these citizen 3 to 5 minutes, and then they, like, when that buzzer sounds, like, we can decide, okay, we want, like, okay, keep going, continue doing what you're doing. If this is in the interest of efficiency and not necessarily, and not information, like, because I feel like the people should generally have the most rights.
Oh,
And if
yes.
we just give guest speakers and presenters the same rights as the people, because, you know, we generally don't try to stop people if they're saying something important and necessary. Like, we could start it at that baseline and say, okay, if need be, keep going, because, you know, we're listening, or we have questions, and so on and so forth.
Madam Chair?
Hold on, Ms. Gaston, you were next.
No, I'm listening. I'm sorry.
No, were you done, Mr. Davis?
Okay.
I'm trying to find that. I know what you're talking about, and it's under the order of business, public comments. But I don't know that the time frame for public comment is in Rule 6 or 7, so I don't know if we can talk about time frame for public comment tonight, because it's
Yeah,
not in Rule 6
we're
or
not-
7.
we're not going
But,
to.
It's not,
I-
it's in
I'm
2.4.
making a note that that might be something that Rules and Public Policy potentially could take on to discuss.
Okay. So is there anything else that we want to discuss in the guest speaker part of this evening? Because I want to make sure we get to our other two sections.
So I want
So I
to
would
make
like
sure I
to
understand. Our quantity is
restate.
1?
To restate what we've come
Sorry.
up with so far, I was just going to restate once I
Yep.
made sure everybody had said all they were going to say. So to restate our guest speakers, the admission process was going to be if any person, like say the administration or the council or them directly, whatever it is, that they are directed towards the clerk of council, CC the president of council, and they will state, like Ms. Clear stated, what their proposal of what they want for that evening. And then we will have something back to them, some sort of template that shows of our expectations. We're looking for 20 minutes. We're looking for you to, if you're gonna have any information, you leave it for us. Basically what Ms. Clear stated about the politics part of it, the, public record part of it, it should all be in the template. And then, also too, if there's questions that, extend a certain amount of time, which we probably should list out, then the questions can be directed directly to the guest speaker after the meeting. And then you can at that point report back to council with the findings of that conversation or whatever. And that we're limiting one guest speaker per evening, per council meeting, and that they should give 10 business days prior notice, whether in or out of session, unless it's time sensitive. Are we good with all that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, when we were talking about the questions, real quick before we leave this section, the questions from the council, where do we stop and go, hey, let's take this offline? So you want everybody to have the availability of 2 questions.
Ooh,
That's fair.
every council member can ask 2 questions?
Not every council member has a question.
We'll be here all night.
If you have a question. And also 2 questions, not 2 motions for the floor. So let's say.
Two questions, and they are questions, not
Statement.
5 minutes of comment and then question.
Correct.
It's a
Ms.
question.
Chichester, can I use you as an example? So let's say Metro comes and Ms. Chichester has a question. She asked to be recognized, she asks her question. And it's not, that's your one question. So then we go through and I talk, maybe Ms. Alexander has a question or whatever, and then you have one more question, you ask to be recognized, and I call on you again, that's your second one. But if you had a third one, then you would contact the guest speaker offline, and if it's something that could really pertain back to council, you could bring it back to us at our next council meeting. Does that sound fair?
Yes.
Question.
But
Yes.
that's it.
As long as everyone has an equal opportunity,
Yes,
because
and
I
2
think that's where we're
questions each.
lacking. Is that what you're about to
Agreed.
say? I'm so sorry.
don't.
Go ahead. I'm talking too much because I'm kind of passionate about this. I need to be quiet.
No, don't be quiet, you're being very helpful. Mr. Davis, go ahead.
So, because it's one of those where, because that's one of those where I understand the guide rules, but I understand guidelines, but I'm also more of a person who believes in flexibility. Like for example, I got questions that I emailed Cindy Abrams in about it and I want to say that was what, January, maybe February. I'll check again to see if she answers them around when it's snowing on the ground. I'll absolutely tell y'all when they answer those things. The thing is, the best time for the sunlight's the best disinfectant. The best time to speak to people and get accountability and get the questions that we need asked is in the face to face portion, especially when that's a portion that you don't often get, and it's one of those where we're like, I don't want us to err on the side of limiting the information that we need to get, because the thing is, because this is a note taking council. Everybody here, like, we're listening, taking it, and asking questions based on what we're hearing, and I just don't like. I understand I understand the point of the procedure. I don't want to limit our access to information, and as a result, the people's access to information, based on a not a necessary construct.
Madam
You
President.
get what I'm saying, even if you disagree?
Madam President,
sorry, I
after,
don't- I
after
can't-
Ms. Gaston.
I would really like to understand what, so are you saying that people should have more than 2 questions? You're saying we should have less than, what?
Because I'm saying,
Help me
because
understand where you're going with
I'm
that.
saying I don't like if people have pertinent questions, or they're necessary. I don't like if there's a third question needed to flesh out the discussion to get what needs to be answered. I don't want somebody to say, no, I'm stopping just because that's my 2. I want us to be able to be flexible to petition people to get the information that we need in order to do our jobs.
I'm going to write down my third question. I'm going to slide it to Mrs. Gaston.
I don't think that's allowed. Hold on, after you, I have something, because I found, I think, something that may address that concern, but you were next, and then
I
you
just
were?
wanted to ask Mr. Davis, so are we not going to limit, because let's just say we all say 3, 3 is a good number. If we say we all get 3 questions, but what if my 4th question is a clarifying question? Where is that limit? Because again, I know myself, Ms. Chichester, Ms. Whitlisbog, we like 10 o'clock, because some council members have 5, 6, 7 questions that are attached to stories. So where is that boundary?
And I do. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, if I may. We already have a provision, and this is Council Rule 6.3, limitation of debate. I believe this would fall similarly under that umbrella, where we're putting some sort of a limit in place here. Presiding officer indicates when the speaker is approaching the end of his or her allotted time, or when his or her time is ended. To your point, 2 questions. However, they have the authority to limit after all members have had a reasonable opportunity for full debate on the matter, provided a majority of council may vote on a motion to overrule the decision of the presiding officer. So if someone has a burning 3rd question, one of us can put a motion to the floor to suspend the rule and override the president limitation of the 2-question limit. That is already in our rules. So we could do that. We can have the rule, but we already have a procedure in place to address if the majority of council really wants that line of questioning to continue. We can, as a body, say, you know what, we like where he's going with this. Let's let him continue for another 5 minutes.
Madam President, I like that.
But we can do that. We,
Read
as a
the first
majority
line
of
in the-
council.
Read the first line in that limit of
For meetings of council, no member shall be allowed to speak more than once on any subject.
once.
Until every other member choosing to speak thereon shall have spoken. Member comments are limited to 5 minutes at one time. The one primary maker of a motion shall have a right to make a final 2-minute summation before a vote. Presiding officer indicates, that could be her, it could be a committee chairperson, whoever, indicate when the speaker is approaching the end of his or her allotted time, when his or her time is ended. The presiding officer has the authority to limit debate after all members have had a reasonable opportunity for full debate on a matter, provided that a majority of council may, on a motion, overrule the decision of the presiding officer to limit debate.
So just to say one thing, though, where you were saying 1 and you were saying what the number 1?
We already
That's-
have a rule that says 1.
Right,
not
but
2.
they're not saying you're only allowed to ask 1 question. It's, so let's say Metro, using them as an example. So Ms. Chichester has a question. I'm not going to call on Ms. Chichester again until everyone else has had a chance to talk. And then I like what Ms. Clear said about the fact of have 2 questions. And if you do have that burning 3rd question, make a motion to set aside the rule so that you can get your burning 3rd question through.
Madam President,
Ms. Alexander.
if someone, say I had a question and I asked Metro, and then Ms. Zorb turns around and says, I want to clarify, Ms. Alexander, your question. Is that one of her questions?
Oh. Ouch.
I'm just saying because it happens where the question isn't really directed towards the person. it's
I
a
get what you-
clarifying question or whatever. It might not even be a clarifying question. Well, it may be a comment to something that I said.
So you're saying the
Is that
question
wha-
isn't to them, it's to one of us?
But it's on the subject matter.
Right,
It's on the
right.
subject
But
matter.
I'm saying
Is that
is-
counted as their question? Because that's that debate that we run into so much where it may be pertinent to the subject.
I think it would be up to a ruling of the chair.
But it goes back and forth,
Mm.
back in, like ping pong.
Mm-hmm.
Is that their question? And then they have not that that question was a legitimate, and then they have another question. Is that considered their question?
Well, I think that
President.
I'm sorry?
Just whenever you're done, I was just saying, Madam President, so I can
Okay.
get in queue.
Okay.
Thank you.
So my thing is I feel like, I don't know, I'm of
There's a
two
lot of
minds.
ping pong that
Boy,
goes on.
Yep.
boy, Ms. Alexander, you sure put forth those thinking questions, because I feel like I'm of two minds. The back and forth between us does also take up the question time. And a big part of me says that if you start doing that, then that is going to count towards your questions. And then you're not going to be able to have time to speak to the guest speaker.
Agreed.
And then my other part of my mind, I don't know. Ms. Chichester, go ahead
May I
and say
get in
your-
line after
yeah.
her? Just briefly, this is the last thing I want to say on this
You
topic.
got
I
your
promise.
You got your limit
First
question.
and last on this topic. So, we set a number of questions for each other. What about the banter back and forth? Because that can, sometimes it's not a question, and sometimes it's statements. And sometimes that can take a little bit of time when we're just talking at each other, going back and forth.
So here's the thing. I think this
That's
also,
subcommittee.
let me say this. I feel like that somewhat falls back on the president of council to, when it comes to, let's say hypothetical, Metro again, okay? And you were going through, Ms. Chichester has her question, right? And then all of a sudden, Mr. Davis and Ms. Alexander start going back and forth to each other on pertaining to a question that you asked Metro. And that's gonna be, because we need to put in there that when it's questions to the guest speaker, that this is the time for that, not for discussion back and forth. If you wanna bring that up in old business, where you wanna talk about what happened earlier on in the, you know what I'm saying? But that, when the guest speaker's here, that's not the time for that. Thoughts?
My last, I think it was
Ms.
in
Claire?
line after her. This is my last topic. It does also say the presiding officer has the authority to limit debate after all members have had a reasonable opportunity for a full debate of the matter. So, to your point, but again, this is a new process. Let's do a ready, fire, aim here. If it's not working out in a couple of months, bring our feedback either to another committee of the whole or to the rules committee, and we can revisit what's broken, what's not working, and we can polish it up from there. That's my position at this point. Start, see if it's working, find where the hiccups are, and then refine.
Agreed.
I agree. And here's one more thing, just to put a thought, and then we're gonna move on to the next thing, is that when a guest speaker's here, just to keep beating that drum of Metro, when they're here to answer questions from us, how much is us debating amongst ourselves, getting that information to the citizenry? We're asking, to expand on what Mr. Davis said, if we have questions, we're asking Metro what their, questions and answers, so we can go back to our citizenry with it. How, are we wasting Metro's time by debating amongst ourselves behind the table? That's,
Right.
okay. So let's move on, and this kind of ties in, so we're moving on here, is I wanted to talk about when we have call of members and when we have, say, we're talking with the administration, or even old business, new business, so you can take it as far as you want. But basically, a lot of time can be taken up there. How we're mentioning here, I liked how we were talking about like the 2-question thing and all this. Can we expand that to talk about when we're having call of members, when we're having the administration speaking, question and answer kind of thing? All right, guys, what do you think?
Madam President.
Ms. Chichester?
So, yes, I understand limiting the question, but sometimes there's clarifying questions of information that we may miss, say, Ms. Clear's giving an update about an event or giving out a phone number, and I may want to re-ask her about like, oh, what was that date again? What was that location? Does that count as my question? Or is that just, or can when I say clarifying question for, because sometimes we were cut off before when we're trying to get a clear understanding on like an event or something, a date or time or something.
I'm talking more of, let's say hypothetically, let's use mayor as an example. So we're during the mayor's report,
Okay.
and she's mentioning 3 different things, maybe Arbor Day, the parade, and something else. And Ms. Alexander has a question, and she asks, and then Ms. Gaston has a question, but she has 10 questions for the mayor because whatever the mayor had been talking about was really touched her. And she's like, I got a lot of questions. That's what I'm saying is, by the time each one of us has 10 to 20 questions per each person on the administration, you know what I'm saying? That's why I'm saying, do we want to have a time limit for question and answer? Do you want to have a number of questions? I was just wondering what your guys' thoughts were.
Madam Chair?
Ms. Alexander, sorry.
sorry.
Ms. Clear.
I think I was referring to, and for the benefit of the viewing public, there was a communication that was sent by Ms. Gaston prior to this meeting with a suggestion in terms of discussion by any individual member, limited. Now, she has written the word 10, but 5 is in parentheses, so I'm assuming it
was
would
an
be
accident.
5 that she meant. And I think that would align with limitation of debate. But frankly, my thought process is council meetings are an opportunity for all of us to have equal time. And the 5-minute rule not only is intended to keep our meeting time under control, but it's to ensure that all of us have a fair opportunity to address an issue at hand.
Absolutely.
Whether it's a question that comes up in a report or, something that happened from one of our other reports that we're giving to each other. But along those lines, I think that I like the 5-minute rule, just in general, and then we move on to the next person. And if you still have questions, then we can go around again. If that's something that we feel like we need to do, because guess what? Ms. Gaston may have a question on her list that didn't get answered, but maybe I asked that question, and we get the answer, one way or the other, right?
Absolutely.
But then we all have an equal opportunity to participate in that discussion, and I think that's the whole point. Plus, I would rather our mayor and administrator finish their reports
Yes.
before we start asking questions in the middle, because
Fair.
our question may be answered later on in something else that they had intended to say.
Absolutely.
And then we're going back and forth about something that they had already planned on sharing with us to begin with. So I believe that we should be allowed to finish their reports, and then, if we have any questions, each of us gets
5 minutes.
the 5 minutes, and then we move on to the next person. That is my thought process, to keep that under control. And if I don't have any questions, I don't have any questions. Like, nope, I'm good. She asked my question. And then we move on.
Madam
So that's my thought process on Rule 7.6, which is mayor's report, which, by the way, does not mention an administrator's report, but I'm assuming we were going to modify that to add administrator.
What
'cause that's not in
section
there.
is that?
7.6. But yeah, that's my thought process, that, at least in terms of administrative reports, frankly, even call of members,
Yeah.
we need a time limit.
Yes, we do.
And that'll help us to be more disciplined just ourselves. And if we're like, I have one more thing, is it okay with everyone if I continue? We can do an aye. We don't need to do a roll call. We can do an aye vote to say, hey, I have one more thing. But that's my thought process on Rule 7.6, which I'm assuming that's what we're discussing right now.
Mr. Davis?
Yeah. So just to make sure I'm clear. So you're saying, okay, so city manager or mayor speaks, and then if we got a question, so you're saying we have 5 minutes to question, and also the call of members? No, just so, or are you saying that we should ask questions of the mayor and city manager during the call of members?
No. So I was using an example, and I apologize that we're kind of mixing them together.
No, we good.
And
the rule is vague,
but
and that's what we're trying to
What I'm
clarify.
trying to say is, and where I was coming at it is that as two examples of areas that I feel we could hone it in a bit. So let's use call of members for a second. So, Mr. Davis, you are the king of mentioning like the call outs to our kids in the schools and all the great things they're doing in sports, right?
Yeah.
So
Love
you mentioned, so you, during your call of members, just to give us an example, you're talking about, hey, call out to so-and-so for being great in basketball or football, all the good stuff you do. And we just keep you at 5 minutes. And then,
I'm cool. And honestly, I'm cool with taking that down to 3.
no, we're just 5. We're, let's not,
I go
let's not
safe.
cut,
Because now we got to be right.
let's not cut through the
Wait
bone
until
here.
this year.
Let's not cut through the bone here. So, but then I'm saying also with, say we're talking to the administration and we're talking to the mayor and Ms. Gaston, just to pick on you for a second. And she mentions 3 different things and you have a ton of burning questions in regards to things that she's saying. You're gonna be more concise maybe in your questions. So you'd maybe be more concise in your questions because you know you have 5 minutes.
Correct.
Thoughts?
I agree.
Now, I'm not saying you have 5 minutes for the whole table. I'm saying
Right.
5 minutes for mayor, 5 minutes for the city administrator, 5 minutes for Mr. Dieters, type of thing. You see what I'm
Might
saying?
not take your 5 minutes.
And you
Right,
might
no,
not take it. You might not
exactly.
have
Correct.
anything to say.
Because that's almost one of those where we almost like the 2 question max could go there as well.
But let's also say, I don't want to also see, I'm going to pick on you, Miss Alexander. So, and just pretend I'm just a regular council member. I'm going over to Miss Alexander going, hey, I need your 5 minutes. And you, I'm not going to, don't let me bully you into
I'll buy
giving
you
up your 5 minutes.
No,
Because you're
That
like,
goes back to the earlier, we don't yield time.
right.
We have
We
no
don't yield
provision
time.
in our rules for yielding time. Your time is your time.
yep, so I just want to make sure everybody, this whole, even though we're trying to hone it in, I want to make sure everybody is still retaining the right to speak and to ask questions, because Mr. Davis made a very good point earlier, is that we're here for the citizens, and these questions are things that could help them too. So I get that. So I'm really glad that we're keeping in mind the whole thing about keeping it shorter, but also allowing time for questions. Does anybody have any questions about this part?
I have 7 questions.
Excellent. You have 5 minutes.
All right. Just kidding. I don't have any questions.
Okay, now, guys, just letting you know. So I have this wonderful thing. So are we good with me using this on you guys for when you guys are doing your discussion?
Just remember to turn it on.
Yes, ma'am.
Does it have an alarm?
It does.
Does it go past
Perfect.
15 minutes?
It does.
I'm just kidding.
Have
But
I
I'm
used
just
up all
saying
my
is, are you,
questions?
I just, because I don't want to be disrespectful, but I also want to be able to have something clear.
The rule is the rule, and that's
Yeah.
The
visible.
rule
Yeah.
is the rule, and you can give us, and I kind of, I'm sorry, you're talking to the microphone. Madam Chair, may I have the floor? Okay, thank you. I kind of liked how, in meetings past, where they're like, you've got 30 seconds left, because that kind of gives me a clue to wrap it up.
Agreed.
That I like, because you can get bogged down in your notes and lose, you're not looking at the timer, So it's like, hey, you got about 30 seconds left, and that helps you wrap it up. I like that too.
So I'm going to start using the timer. Once we, now mind you, we're not going to be able to instigate any of this until the motion and this is put towards council and everybody votes this in, right? So, but once that happens, then this will be the tool that keeps us within that 5 minutes.
And
So-
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
would that go for the people as well?
Yes, when they're speaking out, I've been doing that.
Okay,
Ms.
good.
Stagman can attest that I've been,
Okay.
she doesn't look at it, but I've
Right,
been
that's what I
shining
was-
this, and not picking on you, Ms. Stagman, but I did get one with big numbers. Not saying that you need the big numbers, but I'm just saying to allow at a distance, they've been able to see.
And can they see? And they can see that from their vantage point.
It's large digits.
It's large, I was trying to, just
to 'em.
keep it in mind
Show it
that
to 'em.
you might need to see it at a distance, or you might be very, very
Right.
nearsighted,
Okay.
farsighted.
How you do like this?
Okay, are we good?
Yeah.
All right, third thing, and this is the part where I want to discuss about attendance. Now, the thing is that our meetings start at 7:00. And one thing that I do like that we've been doing is that we have the thing where we call ahead if something happens. Mr. Davis, just to pick on you, the other week you had car trouble.
Right.
And you called and let us know you had car trouble, because not just to, excuse you, but also to know you're okay. If you're not here, we're worrying about you. You know what I'm saying? So I do like the fact that, and that has been working. I do feel like that is a process. But one thing I have noticed is that we do have somewhat of a tardiness issue, and that does affect city business because, number one, sometimes we delay the start to see if everybody's coming, and then also two, we are it's taking time away from what we're doing, because that person may be on a chair of a committee, that person may, you know what I'm saying? So has everybody looked at the attendance part of it? I know, Ms. Clear, I had put that also in your committee. Do you have a secret wonderful thing you did on that one too, or?
Madam Chair, Madam President. And we had actually started working through this in our May 11th committee meeting, but I believe we ran out of time.
Okay.
But I did introduce this topic for discussion, and it also is a beautiful example of disclosure of using generative AI. So this is obviously ready for human review and fine tuning. But this was a proposal. We had started having some discussion specifically regarding number 3. I don't think anyone is unclear on the definition of tardy. If you're not here when we start, you're tardy. The issue is, how do we deal with that? So that's the question. And, again, I'm not going to steal Ms. Gaston's thunder. I'll let her talk about her thunder. But, we had just started touching on what does it mean when it becomes excessive, or do we deal with it? Do we lay down the law the very first time, or is it one of those things where there's a grace number of times, or how do we handle it if somebody walks in the room? Do we stop the meeting and say, okay, they're here now? That was the question that I think we were at, but we ran out of time before we could really start digging into it.
Ms. Gaston?
So, a couple of things. So, what I would like to propose is, if a member is not present at the time of roll call, said member shall not be eligible to vote on any legislation, motion, or business conducted during that meeting unless excused by a majority vote of council due to whatever the circumstances are. So, for example, if my car breaks down, or if I'm sick, or if I'm having trouble in my life and I come late and I message you saying, hey, I'm going to be 15 minutes behind due to XYZ. When roll call is done, and there's a question asked if Ms. Gaston has reached out to anyone. Yes. Then there is a vote to excuse Ms. Gaston or to allow her to come in 15 minutes late. But along those same lines, I know in committee meetings, sometimes people will text their friends or text someone who's going to be in the building. And I do want to add that if you're going to be late or absent for a committee meeting, to allow the chair or the vice chair to know of your attendance so that we know if there's going to be quorum or not. So although we text each other, I may text Ms. Zorb or Mr. Davis, it's important that the president of council, the chair, is aware of what's happening and what's going on.
The presiding officer.
So
Thank you.
so to pick on Ms. Chichester, so last meeting, Mr. Davies had contacted Ms. Chichester saying he was not going to be able to be here, but Ms. Chichester emailed me prior to the meeting, which was greatly appreciated. So I am in agreement that the chair needs to know, or the president of council needs to know prior to the meeting, like, to pick on you again, Ms. Chichester. So say you are running late, let's just even say you're coming from out of the city and you're in traffic and you shoot out, you've been sitting there for 50 minutes and you're like, oh my God, and you shoot off an email saying, I'm running late for whatever reason. And then when, we bring it up and yes, Ms. Chichester has contacted me because she's stuck forever on 75 North. Okay, so there's a vote to allow her to be excused tardy. But, so there's a line between letting know and not letting know. So maybe we need to, number one, be a little more thoughtful in the fact of letting people know when you're going to be tardy. This will help the situation. But-
Madam
Oh,
Chair,
Who was the Madam Chair first?
I think she was.
Go ahead.
So let's talk about the process directly.
Okay.
Should this be an email? Should this be a text? Should this be the president and the chair? When it's a committee meeting, if it's a council meeting, how should we have those lines of communication? So if it's a council meeting, should someone text or email you? Let's get that, like, no questions asked, this is the protocol. Sometimes it may be last minute, but sometimes when you're gonna be late. Do we wanna establish, unless it is something that was emergent, that, hey, I know that I have a doctor's appointment
And it may
and
run
I may
over.
be running late. I know I have a doctor's appointment in advance. Should there be, just like your job?
Oh, yeah.
And let's establish the lines of how that communication should take place on a committee meeting and a council meeting.
So let me
Madam
put,
Chair.
Because I don't have your phone number.
so let me just
Oh,
put an
have each
idea
other's
and then,
numbers. It's
I'm
on our-
gonna call on you next and then I'm gonna go down to Ms. Chichester. So I believe, let's separate it out a little bit. When it comes to council meetings, I know communications go through the clerk. But I feel like if you're gonna be late and it's not something where, again, you're stuck on 75 with a flat tire or whatever, it should be an email that goes, or I guess a text, something written should be going to the clerk and to the president of council. You may not know my phone number, so
I can
an
figure it out.
email will work. You know what I'm saying? But and then when it comes to a committee, it's kind of like a backup thing. So can I pick on you two for,
Absolutely.
City Community Development, Recreation? Let's say you, Ms. Gaston, I'm on your committee and I'm gonna be running late. But I email you and you may not be Johnny on the spot on your cell phone. You might be working with your kids on something.
Always, yeah.
So it's always good to have a backup to make sure you are you know what I'm saying? So it would be prudent to also include the assistant chair,
Vice
co-chair, vice chair, whatever, in on that, so you have coverage. Because if Ms. Gaston doesn't get to see your email, Ms. Alexander does. So you're covered. So
So just
Ma-
to be
Madam-
clear, these are emails and not text messages?
I feel like it could be either.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I think I was, I don't disagree with notification. That's not what I'm concerned with. My concern with is if somebody is like driving in their car, they should not be emailing. So,
Or
I was
texting.
using
or
that as an
texting.
example.
or
Or
texting.
texting, because we just passed the law to prevent it.
Phone, so
We
at any
did.
rate,
I was
I
using
think
that as an
as
example.
soon as is practical, they can
Right.
communicate. And I believe it should be the presiding officer as a rule. Or in the case of a regular council meeting, in progress, the clerk, right? Something like that. But we should all have each other's phone numbers
We
because I'm
should.
pretty sure the clerk gave us all a piece of
She
paper that
did.
had our emergency contact
She
numbers
did.
on it.
And our preferred method of
And our
communication.
preferred method of communication in case of an emergency. We should all have that. So I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus, but
No,
if we
but-
don't have it,
I'll just
we
have to
can
search
send
it
it
up.
again. We
Well,
can
in the
send it
ba-
again. But save that number in your phone, so we have it. And I also wanted to say, just if I may, just one more thing, if that's allowed, unless you want to move on to another person.
Let me ask Ms.
Sure,
Chichester
go
real
ahead.
quick, and I'll bounce back to you, because she has been very patient. Go ahead.
So for me, my personal phone is not always with me. So sometimes my children have it, my grandson may have it. So this is why I don't always allow work text on my phone, because it's easy for me to get into my laptop and check emails. So my preferred method of contact is email. So just like when he let me know, I emailed it to you.
Yes.
Now, I'm going to ask, is that okay? Because he may not have your number readily available but he may have mine. So as long as we communicate it to you through the email, is that appropriate?
I don't see any problem with that. The only
Okay.
thing I would ask, just to go along with what everybody's saying, is maybe to CC the clerk.
Okay.
Just in
Then
case.
that's
Just in
fine.
case, let's say, I mean, because I might have been at work and
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of chugging along myself. All I would ask is just to have double coverage. If I don't see it, the clerk will see it.
And sometimes if you're in a frenzy or you're doing something else or in the midst of an emergency or the midst of some outside entity, it's easier to contact the person closest to you or email closest to you instead of just saying it needs to come directly. I think
And
as
like
long
I
as the communication is
President.
there.
I'm gonna cue.
One thing that like I said before, I had no real problem with
Right,
how-
so I'm just wanting to
My
clarify.
thing is, the only caveat I would feel is just adding that second level of
So
coverage.
that's, so as long as if it's a council meeting, the president of council and the clerk of council on the email letting them know the update on that council member, then that's appropriate?
And then I feel like a committee meeting, it would be the chair
Chair
and
the clerk?
vice chair.
And the vice chair.
Vice chair.
Vice chair. That way you have coverage,
Okay.
just to prevent, say, somebody's busy, not able to see that message, but the other person is, because you got each other's
So it's a
back.
double, so
Just coverage.
that's fair.
You know what I'm saying? Because you're working with chair and
Chair.
chair and vice chairs work together and got each other's back when it comes to committee meetings. That also means for attendance.
Awesome. That's fine.
Ms. Gaston?
I was just, you kind of covered it, but again, if it's a committee meeting, chair and vice chair, no matter what, email, text, as soon as
Whatever.
possible.
Yeah, whatever's your, and it can be text, it can be whatever is your preferred mode of transportation, communication.
Contact,
You know what I'm saying? And like,
Absolutely.
if Miss Gaston contacts, Ms. Alexander and tells her that she can't make it, you can contact, you know what I'm saying? As long as the communication is getting to here, you know what I'm saying? Does that make sense? Okay, now back to what we were saying about the whole thing of, so we've
Madam
talked
Chair.
about excused tardies and non-excused tardies. Ms. Clear?
I had one more thing that I was going to say about this, because this actually just happened to us a couple weeks ago. They were, and I'm going to pick on her, but because it was not her fault. They were in another meeting down the hall. The clock in that room was 5 minutes slow.
Yeah.
So they did not know that it was already 6 o'clock. They were keeping an eye on the clock. So I knew she was in the building, as the chairperson of that committee. If I know that you are literally pulling in the driveway, I can wait 2 minutes to start the meeting.
Absolutely.
So that is our discretion as well. We can't start early. We don't want to start late, like terribly late. But since I knew that she was right down the hall, I'm not going to sit here and be like, I'm starting my meeting on time and she's late. I'm not going to do that because that's unreasonable, I think.
And I
As
thank
a
you for that
discretion, as
professional
a chair,
courtesy.
as a chairperson,
Yes.
only because I knew she was here, and I had watched you walk in, Miss Orb, because she was coming like at 6 on the nose, like flying in here. It's like, okay, you know what? We can start this meeting at 6:01. It's okay.
Yes.
Nobody
that's-
will die if I start this meeting at 6:01.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of a discretionary thing.
Yes.
But instead, if I know you're going to be 15 minutes late, I'm not waiting for you. Sorry.
Absolutely.
Well, and that's
Please
also,
don't. Please continue.
yeah.
Absolutely.
and that's also of the thing of with a council meeting, like say we're all coming together, we're starting to sit down. I'm just gonna keep picking on you, Miss Chichester.
I'm fine
I
with
look
that.
over, I don't see your bag sitting on your thing. I don't
Right.
see anything, but you might have it all in the restroom. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, okay, are we ready to start? We're missing some people. And then Miss Alexander's like, oh, I saw Miss Chichester in the room. I'd be like, nope, it's too bad, too sad. You got to, sorry. You know what I'm saying, though? It's all about
Absolutely. It's
just
all
having
about
each other's back.
Respect, professional
Yes.
courtesy, and just being aware that some of us are not as young as we used to be and don't move as fast as others. So,
Hey, speak for yourself over there.
whatever.
Madam President,
Miss Gaston.
I just wanted to share that I sent out the council directory for 2026 to everybody.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
all of that should be available to you all.
Thank you very much.
I think if we know it's a meeting night, we can kind of just do a little quick check and say, have I heard from anybody? No. Okay.
Ms. Alexander.
So now we're going to talk about the consequences,
Yes,
our proposed
let's do that.
consequences?
Yes.
Hang on, there's one more topic there.
Oh, okay.
Ms. Orr?
Right to vote if you're late or tardy.
Okay.
Well, I think that would be a consequence.
Be a consequence.
Yeah, I was concerned
Okay.
that
All right.
consequence,
Sorry.
and we're talking unexcused. So, let's say, Miss Alexander, I'm gonna use you as an example. So let's say you didn't let anybody know, and you came in here at 7:08. We've already done call of members, and, so do you get to vote?
You've done roll call.
We've done roll call. You've missed roll call. You were not excused.
Okay.
Do you get to vote? What does everybody think?
Madam President.
Madam President.
Ms. Chichester?
I feel like if you're present, you get to vote.
Okay. Ms. Clear?
I actually, because I did some homework on this as well, Robert's Rules of Order.
Yep.
If you are present for a vote, you get to vote. Now, that said, because we're a charter city and we have our own rules, we can impose our own restrictions. I think there's some opportunity for some middle ground here, If you are so late that you miss a vote, like we've already approved the minutes and you have a correction, I'm so sorry about your luck. You missed the vote. Okay, so but I think there's got to be something, where, and if we're going to excuse them after they arrive, do we stop the meeting and say, okay, they're here, they couldn't call us because they were, behind an ambulance or whatever. So what do we do then? So I think, again, we have to be reasonable. We have to have a rule, right? And it's 6 to 1, it's tough, right? So how hard are we going to be on this if the person either gave advance notice, they can vote, but if they didn't and they couldn't, how do we know they couldn't? Because there's some provision that I had in here, unless it's an emergency. How do we know it was an emergency? So we don't. So does that mean that they therefore can't vote at all? Or do we call a short recess or stop the proceedings to vote to excuse the person? What do we do?
Madam President,
So,
Ms. Alexander?
can we put a time? Like if you are 30 minutes late?
You're no
And
longer
I mean, because
tardy.
if I'm going to be.
Way too long.
I'm just saying a time, because if I'm going to be that late, I'm not going to come.
Right.
I'm not going to disrupt the meeting. I might sit in the audience, or I might, and if it's an emergency that bad, I'm probably not in the position to come. Something has happened where it's made me 30 minutes late.
You're not in the headspace for it.
I'm not going to come because that's going to be sickness, some business that I had needed to take care of. I'm not going to disrupt council, the flow that's going on with my, coming in, and now I got to play catch up. I don't know what we're talking about. So that's why I was proposing a time, and maybe it's not 30 minutes. Maybe it's, 15 minutes or something like that, hey, at this time,
You're no longer tardy, you're absent.
you're absent. It's like your job, they may give you that 6-minute window,
Get 6 minutes.
but after that,
7.
it's a wash. And like I said, and it's a respectful thing because you don't want to disrupt what's going on. It could have been a speaker talking. It could have been anything. And now I'm coming in trying to catch up. I can't catch up and be functional if I'm so late. And I probably need to go ahead and take care of whatever business that I needed to take up that made me late.
Okay.
Madam
was the-
President.
One
I
sec.
was-
Ms. Chichester?
has everyone had a chance to?
Well, I'll let everybody have a
Ms.
chance since I
Gaston.
already.
Okay, so I'm looking at our council agenda for this coming Monday. So we have prayer, we have call to order, we have pledge of allegiance, and then we have roll call. If we're looking at timing from prayer to roll call, that's a good 15 minutes on a good day. So are we saying that 15 minutes after we have done the first part of our introduction to council, what does that look like? What is that timing? for an unexcused tardy.
I'm thinking council starts at 7 o'clock.
Okay.
And so that's where a good rule of thumb is roll call, because that's about,
It's about 5.
is it about 5?
How long does it take to recite the prayer and say the pledge? We do it right after that.
Right
That is
back
true.
to back. Yeah, like 7 or something. Yeah.
It's like 7:03 when we're doing roll call.
Okay, so here's the thing. So let's talk about this real quick. Is that tardiness has become an issue. I do understand. I think if we hone in the fact of being excused versus not being excused, I think we've definitely covered that tonight. But one thing I think we do need to understand is that if you're tardy and you're walking in here at 7:06 and somebody is talking or somebody is, addressing some issue or whatever, that is a disruption and is affecting how this body is working. So I'm saying is there has to be some sort of ramification to, because even in Miss Zorb, I think you had said something you had found where in the ORC for Ohio, it does have some sort of ramifications for unexcused absences, a certain amount of unexcused absences. I do believe there needs to be a ramification for tardiness because I feel it affects this body. I feel that it's a disruption when you're coming in. And let's use me as an example. I sit in the middle. Okay, so say I'm late. So I'm having to climb all over 4 people to and ICRC, and I'm clumsy. I've probably fallen in ICRC's lap, tripped over Mr. Davis, and then finally made it to my seat, disrupting everybody's talking when I'm coming in. That's what I'm trying to say. This is why I feel like we need to have some sort of guidelines here, because it becomes a disruption and it's affecting us as a whole. So I think we're still in the ramifications. There needs to be something. If it's not, you are not able to vote. If it's not, you lose a committee chair or whatever. I feel it needs to have something because I feel like it is getting out of hand.
Madam
It's clear.
President, I don't know, Mr. Davis, you wanted to say.
No, go ahead.
But I'm pretty sure we have page 2 of this document this time. So there were some procedural steps that were suggested, but I'll let him go next.
Like, yeah, so when it comes to this, so, because as a penalty for tiredness, I think I'm fine with, I'm worried about not voting, but the point to be made, like, most consequential votes to be made, that's not gonna happen until about 7:45 or later. And quite frankly, everybody's made the point. If you can't get here by 7:45, you probably shouldn't. You probably shouldn't come because you probably ain't in the headspace to properly contribute. Even though that's one of those things that I worry that are we going to encourage absence, because is discouraging tardiness going to end up encouraging absence? Like I said, that word, like that's a me question. And also I say I'd be bothered with not being allowed to vote. I'd be fine with not being allowed to speak. If you say, okay, you call a minute, you call a member, your questioning is cut because you're disrupting the flow of the meeting. Like I said, I'd be fine with that. But it feels like stopping somebody from voting, like that actually does gum up the machinery of city business.
Well, let me say one thing on that, and I'm just putting this out there, just whatever. So, Ms. Alexander, you come in late. Before you just come and sit down, you sit down in the audience and we recognize you, and at our earliest convenience, like say we're in the middle of something and when we stop, then we make a motion if we're going to, excuse you. So that way you're not disrupting.
Right. Oh.
We're pausing at our earliest convenience. Now, mind you, if we're in the middle of a guest speaker, we're in the middle of whatever, we're not going to interrupt something. But at our earliest convenience to stop, we take a motion if we're going to excuse you or not.
Madam Chair.
Madam President, or
Sorry, President. I feel like we may have skipped a step here. Because let's say Mary Jo's late. Mary Jo has not reported in. No call, no show is what my work calls it. No call, no show.
Yes?
So I'm a no call, no show. And I bring my happy behind in here about 7 minutes late. By then, we are past roll call, as we've already affirmed that we get to roll call about 3 minutes in, which means I'm absent. So if I'm absent, I can't vote. So unless we do another roll call and acknowledge that Mary Jo showed up 7 minutes late, Mary Jo can't vote because I'm not here. Because I was deemed absent. You can put whatever spin you want on that, but I'm absent.
And I think that goes
And I'm not
along-
saying that I'm saying.
I know what you mean. But I think that also goes along with if you come in late, you're over here, and we are acknowledging if we're going at our earliest convenience, if we're
But
going
it's going to stop the meeting.
It is.
And you have to then go ahead and excuse someone for being absent.
Yes,
Madam President,
So it's an ordeal.
Ms. Clear.
I'm after her.
Madam President, I'm
Ms.
after
Gadsden.
I
Annalise.
think it encourages accountability.
Yes.
Because we're all adults. In our work life,
And we're getting
we are on
paid.
a schedule. In our home life, we're on a schedule. And it encourages accountability. We're talking about unexcused absences. We're talking about our tardiness. You didn't tell anybody that you were going to be late.
Yes.
To me, like I said, unless it is something that was, you could not avoid, it's not respecting the seat. We signed up for, when we signed up, we knew what time your committee meetings are, you know what time your council meetings are. I think anything else is encouraging, hey, I can stop at Penn Station on the way. It's been times I wanted to stop somewhere. I left my phone one time, and, I have a child at home. I wanted to go back. But I'm like, no, I'm going to be late. And I signed up to be here at 7 o'clock. I think anything else is encouraging that, hey, I can just stroll on in. Because if it's no,
Repercussions.
no strong repercussions, what's to stop me?
Yeah.
What's to stop me? I'm an adult, like I said, and if I've called and said, hey, I'm going to be late, that's a different story. But if I did not take any type of, preventative things that we've established, call somebody, text somebody, hey, I got to deal with the repercussions of it, no matter if it's, not speaking, not voting. I think not voting will put a fire under me to make me get here on time.
Absolutely.
Not speaking, sometimes I may go through a council meeting and I might not say nothing. I'm just listening. So that's not going to discourage me. But if you take away my vote, that my job is to be here and my job is to vote, that's like I am dismissing my citizens.
Yeah.
I'm dismissing my citizens because I didn't get here in time to do my due diligence to vote. That means to me, I'm not doing my best, putting my best job in, because I know the rule is I have to be here to vote. I got to be here. I want the best for my city, and my vote might be the one. So I need to be here. That's just how I.
Ms. Clear?
Oh, I'm going to waive my,
So here's my thing.
Madam
and
President.
So, because what time is it, by the way? I forgot my phone at home.
8:34.
Okay. I just kind of want to make sure where we are in the scheme of things. So let me just, again, round it back in. If, say, Miss Alexander comes in late, didn't call nobody knew, but you stroll in at 7:10. In my opinion, I feel like you shouldn't be able to take your seat up here until you've been recognized by the body. And because, like Ms. Zorb said, You weren't here for roll call, you didn't call nobody, so really, we're considering you absent. So you come in at 7:10, you're over here at our earliest convenience, whatever that is. We stop, because you're gonna have to inconvenience us, because now we gotta stop our city business and acknowledge you and make a motion to say, we're excusing your absence. Now, if you have excessive tardiness, where you're doing that every 2 weeks, now that's going to be a different conversation with the body. Because now we're having to stop what we're doing every time we have a meeting to let Miss Alexander, just using you as a prop, to come aboard. Because, and the thing is, if we have excessive amounts of those, where now every 2 weeks, we're having to excuse Miss Alexander, maybe we're going to start not excusing her.
Madam President,
Madam
Gaston.
President.
I just wanted to say really quickly, I was reviewing past council meeting minutes.
Yeah, sure.
And there was something that was voted on, and when I looked at it, I was like 0 to 6, but it looks like it was only 5 people in attendance. And so when I looked back, it then recognized later in the minutes that there was a council member that came 20 minutes late, so that's why the votes look like that. So piggybacking off of Ms. Clear, our future selves, we may not remember that. So finding a way that we're going to document if someone is coming in late or not, because that does throw things off when you see that only 5 council members showed up, but there were 6 votes for yes on XYZ piece of legislation.
But
So-
Madam President, we already documented
Madam
when somebody's
President,
late, sorry.
I was.
Miss Clear.
I was probably going to say the same thing he did. If there's advance notice, we have preemptively excused this person. Okay, so when they arrive, I think the cleanest thing to do would just be call a 2-minute recess, let that person get settled, and then restart the meeting immediately, as if nothing is. We don't have to call another vote. We've already excused them, and then we just note in the minutes that they arrived at such and such a time, and we move on with our lives.
I'm talking about when it's unexcused.
Yes.
Well, okay, so,
I'm not
yeah.
saying excused.
But I
That's a
think
whole
either
different
way,
thing.
we have to talk about the procedure, because if somebody walks in 7 minutes and they're excused, we still have to do something, to your
Correct.
point, otherwise they're climbing over cabling to get in here. So we recognize that we're going to call a 2-minute recess, and we do the roll call, 2-minute recess, let them get settled, and we start immediately, as if we didn't stop. That's my opinion, but if it's unexcused, that's a whole separate process. I don't know that we stop the meeting, but then again, we have these things, if it's extraordinary circumstances, how do we know it's an extraordinary circumstances? So we don't, so I think those are going to be exceedingly rare. But I think if we have, a procedure for notification, and we have a procedure for what do we do when they do show up, and if they have not given us any notice, it's not excused. So that's I think where we are. But I don't think we stop the meeting if somebody's unexcused.
Agree.
That's just my 2 cents. If we're going to draw the line at excused or unexcused, we don't stop the meeting.
So if we don't stop the meeting, so do we just?
If they're
I'm
absent,
very-
we just said if they're absent, they're absent.
No, if they're tardy and they have not been excused, what do we
That's
do
a
at that
tardy
point?
is roll call and.
But that's what we just said. If they're tardy at roll call without excuse, they're absent. I think
President.
somebody just presented that.
So
as-
then they should not be able to come up here and vote?
That's what we're suggesting, but that's what we're
Excuse.
suggesting. I was just clarifying that, so now we're all on the same page.
Yes.
But then how do we know it was an extraordinary circumstance?
Madam President,
Ms. Chichester?
that raises the great point. What if there's an accident on Goodman and I can't get here? And what if my device is stolen, broken, dead?
Then you miss
No,
you miss
but-
council.
But I'm saying, how do you know that, is what she's saying. How do you know that ahead of time, is what she's trying to say. At what point do we find out what the excuse is?
Madam,
Because if I come in and it's 10 minutes and we are all sitting here and no one has no idea what's going on outside the doors, there could be police activity that closes a road. We don't know. So I get what she's saying. She's just asking for clarification. We're setting the rule, call, text, email, right? That's clear. But
So
when we
theoretically,
put-
that person could just text while they're waiting and say, hey, I'm stuck.
Correct. So, but I get what she's saying. How do you, or at what point do we clarify that if someone's coming in late, that it was an extenuating circumstance that they didn't, or why they didn't communicate, or maybe they couldn't communicate? What point, when they walk in, are we going to ask for a recess to make that the discussion between the president of council and that council member? Then how many times are we going to allow these recesses to find out?
And that's kind of what I was saying about how many times are we going to interrupt the body's work to be able to deal with this.
Absolutely.
Now, but the thing is number one, I'm just gonna keep picking on
Hopefully,
you.
we won't have to
But
deal with.
say Miss Alexander comes in, okay, and we're in the middle of doing something, and nothing's been communicated. But I'm not gonna go, oh, Miss Alexander, you were late. Why were you late? And then she's gonna have to explain
We have
on.
flustered.
Right. But so it's going to be a matter of she comes in late, she sits here politely, waits to be acknowledged. I'm not going to be putting her on the spot going, and why were
Absolutely
you late
not.
tonight? Because
No,
that's
no,
not, really, that's not something that needs, it could be a
Absolutely
personal
not.
matter.
No,
What
no.
it would be is more of, she's sitting over there politely, waiting to be acknowledged. We get to that point, we're just going to have to assume it was extenuating circumstances.
Absolutely. That's fair.
And vote to, you know, let her come on this side of the table.
Right,
But
and
my
then-
thing is that if we, let's say Ms. Alexander has done this now for the past 2 months, where every meeting, she is strolling in 10 minutes late.
Exactly.
But you know somebody lying there.
Right. And so, but my thing is, and so we say at that point, you know, she's kind of been doing this a lot. So at that point,
Absolutely.
as a body, we're going, and again, we're not putting her on the spot.
No, no,
She's
no.
over there, but we say, she's been doing this a lot.
I think we could pull
We
each
do
other
a
in
vote.
executive session to have that discussion.
Madam President,
Agree with Mr. Chester.
Madam President,
Yes.
I was not expecting her to mention executive session, but that's why there's some definition of excessive. And then some definition of what do we do first, second, and third? Do we immediately go to the hard line, whatever? And I will have to say, I'm going to say this because I didn't know this again until I started researching all of this. We cannot go into executive session to discipline an elected official. That is against the law. We cannot do that. Executive session is not for elected officials. If there is any reprimand or discipline to an elected official, it must happen in open meeting because the taxpayers have a right to know. And the voters have a right to know. That is the law. It is actually written in there, in the same statute we quote every single time. The very next sentence that we don't read says you cannot go into an executive session for an elected official to discipline.
So, on that, so let's say, so it's been 4 times in a row that Miss Alexander has been late. She's politely waited next to Miss Stagman to be acknowledged, and, you know, we are now 4 times in a row. At that point, each time we're going to do a roll call at our earliest convenience, if we're going to excuse the fact that you were tardy and allow you to come up to the table. So let's say it's been 4 times in a row. At that point, if we vote no to not excuse her, she's absent. Yep. And then that means she can't vote. I'm just following the bouncing ball. I'm just following the bouncing ball there.
Correct.
Is that way we all feel?
Because now, question, isn't our accountability partner the voters in the city as opposed to one of us? Because to stop someone from voting, once again, that can be seen as silencing the will of the people for what's seen as a procedural issue.
Well, just to kind of, not to step on the end of your sentence there, Mr. Davis, but I do believe that I'll just use you as an example because you brought up, so let's say you were voted in by the people, and they're putting their trust in you to vote in their stead.
Right.
But because they did that, it's your responsibility to also be on time and to be present. And if you're not able to, because we are all human, you're contacting someone, we're following the rules, right?
Right, fair.
But let's say we're just, because we have to follow rules, right? We can't be lawless here. We have guidelines. So let's say let's say hypothetically you come in late, you haven't contacted anybody, and it's not the first time. The first time we're going to assume something happened to you.
Right.
And we're going to say, hey, most likely we're going to vote and excuse you, you're going to come over here. But let's say 3-4 times have gone by, okay? And we're sitting here going, well, we've already done our roll call. We've already basically counted you absent. At that point, and we're saying it's been 4 or 5 times, at that point, then it becomes, if we're not excusing you because we're seeing, maybe they're seeing as your
A pattern.
a pattern, or you're I don't know. But the thing is, if you're not excused and they're not excusing you, then you're technically absent.
Okay.
And then
like I said,
that's not saying that that's infringing on your right to vote or that you're silencing the voters, because bigger you, have every opportunity to be here or to contact us in any which way.
right.
You know what I'm saying? Even
get
if
you.
it's just stopping by Ms. Alexander's house and being like, oh my God, this just happened. I don't have my cell phone on me. Can you, tell, we've listed out tons of opportunity here. And it's not even the first time. We're saying this is becoming a pattern.
Right. Understand.
And
Madam
that's what I'm
President.
saying is that that's where they have the opportunity to excuse or not excuse. But if it's not excused, then bigger you, is absent. That's the way I feel.
That's the way it is.
Madam President.
Ms. Chichester, you were giving me eyeballs, that's why I was like, oh.
Constituents.
So, removing the right to vote, is it only under the circumstance that it becomes excessive? Or say Monday, I'm not here and I don't, at roll call, and I come in a few minutes later, do you remove my right to vote after I've been here, per se, if I had perfect attendance? And all of a sudden, or are you saying that removing the right to vote only comes after excessive tardies and absence?
Okay, so for one thing, it wouldn't be me
No, I'm
anything.
saying whoever.
I just wanted to
the
clarify,
council, right.
it's not me. But every time, can I use you as an example? So
Absolutely.
you're coming in late. You haven't called nobody. This is an unexcused thing.
For
We've
one
already-
time.
Yeah, first time. You're coming in, and you're sitting over there politely for us to
Absolutely.
acknowledge you. And we're gonna do a roll call here to excuse you. I'm not gonna speak for anyone else, but I am sure everybody's gonna assume that obviously you had some extenuating
is a
circumstances.
one-off.
You know what I mean? And
That's what I wanted to
again,
clarify.
and again, we're not gonna go, Miss Chichester, where were you? And making you on the spot going, I had car trouble, I had to change a flat. Sorry. You know what I mean? Nobody's gonna do that. But I'm saying is, I'm talking about, you've come in now 4 times in the past 2 months, consistently.
So the excessive time.
We're talking about excessive tardiness.
That's the clarification I wanted to make.
Excessive tardiness and let's even define it further. Excessive unexcused tardiness.
Absolutely,
Because
that
the,
clarification.
because the thing is everybody's reasonable here. If I'll just pick on you, Mr. Davis. Let's say you're coming, say you're coming from someplace else and you're running late. And you contact one of us, and it gets to me, like I said, we want to make sure it gets to 2 people. So it's going to be the clerk and myself. And you're saying, I know I'm going to be late. That's going to be an excused absence because you
understood.
let us know.
Right.
Because it's all about making sure that this body is working at the best of its capability.
Okay.
And also, too, it's keeping us from worrying about you.
Right. And also a question in related to that. So, how does this work? How does this work for committee meetings? And also what is quorum for a committee meeting?
So
Half is always quorum.
Huh?
Half is always quorum.
Half, okay.
It doesn't matter the body.
Madam President, I believe it's technically a majority of members present is a quorum.
One more
I
than
would
for
think.
voting.
like
think-
quorum for council meeting would be 4.
Yes, because that's one more than half. But
And
I don't, that's a good question, actually, but I don't know if that's, somebody said something and I was gonna say something.
Madam
Oh,
President, Madam
to
President,
de- to
can I
define-
bring a law
define-
into
to define excessive.
place here?
Yes.
Ohio Revised Code 705.13 talks about salaries and attendance of members. So, I mean, there is a law out there that states payment can even be held back. Payment method, so it talks about attendance deductions for each absence from a regular meeting of the legislative authority unless authorized by 2/3 vote of all members. A deduction equal to 2% of the annual salary can be made.
Madam
So, I
Chair.
mean, there are other ramifications that could be made in addition to losing your right to vote. You could lose some of the $5
So
that we make.
$10, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. It's not a huge ramification. I'm just saying there are other options also, is my whole point.
Ms. Clear?
Hang on, can I read one more section?
course.
It says vacating a seat. Absence from 10 successive regular meetings will result in vacating of a member's seat unless the absence is authorized by the legislative authority.
And that would be the excused
that's-
absence piece.
But my whole point is that's Ohio Revised Code. It's not like we're just coming up with some random ideas.
Right.
It's out there.
Okay, so are we okay with how it stands? Do we have any other caveats in here?
Madam
I-
President,
I
can you
was-
restate for the record how it's, what you mean? Because we went through a lot of things, so I want to make sure we're clear on what we just said was going to happen.
Okay, so,
I had a clarifying question about the definition of excessive.
okay.
Because I
Ms.
think
Claire.
that's where we landed, and we kind of went down a different rabbit
Okay,
hole
Ms.
of
Clear,
consequences.
you,
So-
you want clarification on what's excessive?
Right, because there's, once, we all agree is not excessive, if it's a once-off thing. But then I think in Ms. Gaston's handout, she mentions 3 unexcused absences. I guess we could also include unexcused tardies. That would
Well, yeah,
classified
because-
as an absence.
Well, it would classify as an
Within a
absence 'cause you're
12-month
past-
period. So that means for the entire year, I could miss in February, in June, and then not until November. That's a 12-month period, and then that would be subject to formal censure. I think we need to tighten that up a little bit.
It says unexcused absences.
Right,
And so this is what Ms. Clear
yes.
created. Mine is different.
Unexcused, I honestly think we need to tighten that. I don't want to, if we're going to make this a thing,
Then what are you looking for?
within a rolling 6-month period,
Do you want it 6 months?
rolling 6 months,
So not a year, you want it
And that's
6 months.
unexcused.
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 So a rolling 6-month period is a proposal here. And again, this is just the unexcused, which, again, in a great world, but I don't, if this is going to be a point where we are saying that this person is basically a dereliction of duty,
Yes.
okay, which essentially is what this is. February, July, and November constitutes a dereliction of duty out of 20 meetings.
That's not fair.
If we're going to say it's a 12-month period. So that's,
Unexcused.
I understand.
Unexcused.
I just want to clarify. I want to tighten that up is what I don't want to wait. If we're going to say it's a dereliction of duty and I've been functioning just fine for a whole year,
So does anybody have a problem with tightening it up to 6 months instead of a year? Okay,
I don't have a problem.
okay.
making it 6
So
months.
does anyone else have any, anything else to discuss on the attendance?
Madam
Now, we have to-
President,
oh, go ahead, my bad.
I was just going to state for the record, it's 8:55 p.m.
I know, I'm,
thank you.
I know I don't have my phone on me. I appreciate you all.
I kind of
keeping me-
like the time-constrained meetings. It forces us to get stuff
Can we do
done.
that for council? Can we say it has to be done by a certain time?
Yes, we
We
can.
can stop.
Yeah, so how does that work for committee? How does,
Okay, so for
same
committee.
rules apply for committees, or?
Now we did state for committee that I'll just pick on you for a second. So you are going to be late to city community development and recreation. You're going to contact both Ms. Gaston and Ms. Alexander because you want coverage. So you're
Right.
going to contact both of them. That's an excused absence.
Right.
But
Because I got an unexcused, because I got an unexcused one because some genius didn't read the paper and found out that the meeting changed from 6:30 to 6. So how is that, how does those count? Okay, but I'm saying,
Madam President,
but I'm saying, so how many
But see,
unexcused?
that's a one-off.
That was a one-off. That
you're
does not
being-
count.
You're not being, nobody considered that there, like, you misunderstood the time. We are all human. That's why we were saying, we're gonna keep in mind that we're all human. Nobody's trying to discipline people. We want everybody here to work together, because everybody here is important. And we can only do this together.
Right, I get
So,
it.
I would say the same guidelines for council goes for committee, but again, that's why there's 3, because we understand.
but not only that, Mr. Davis, no, everybody was, the meeting didn't happen, so you weren't unexcused or excused.
It should still count. And for the record, my back should be a walking, talking, extenuating circumstance with scoliosis, but that's not here.
I get it. I get it. All right, are we good, guys?
What is our next step? What is our takeaway? Are we
Next
are we
step is-
redrafting these? Obviously, Monday's meeting is not realistic to have updated anything. I don't, it's not on the agenda.
So Ms. Clear was kind enough to take some, or Ms. Cure, what's wrong?
Nothing,
What's wrong?
What are
nothing.
we doing?
So
I was
Ms.
just asking what our
Ms.
homework is.
So Ms. Gaston was kind enough to take minutes for us tonight. And so what we're going to do is we're going to hone in those minutes. She'll probably take a bit to get them together, send them to me. And then what I was going to do was put them together in some sort of like addition to the rules, you know what I'm saying, like a page. And then what we would do is either present them to council as 3 different motions, because it's 3 different sections, or we would present it as one motion, and they would get voted in.
So the goal is to vote on this in 72 hours.
Or at the next, yes, at the next,
So
could be the
so
goal.
when
If
are we
we don't- if
going
we
to
don't
get
make- if
these
we don't make it, we
drafts
don't
to
make
look
it.
at?
Right.
Yeah, I don't, respectfully, I don't think 72 hours is realistic.
and
That's what I was
that's
trying to
I'm
say.
saying.
Is
It
this-
doesn't have to be at the
Should it go to
exact.
committee first, or are we going straight to council? Because then if we're going straight to
It's-
Straight to
council.
This
council.
is committee, so it's
Oh.
gonna go straight to council.
So then that will be on July's agenda, or, because we only have one next
Yeah, I'm
month.
thinking it's gonna be on July's agenda.
I think that's
Okay.
more realistic, just
Agreed.
given
Yes.
Yeah,
everything going on
and that
here.
would be fair.
Fair.
So I think it'll go on July's agenda, and it'll give us enough time, and basically everybody, it'll be an amendment to the rules.
Okay.
And it'll either come as 3 motions, however you guys want to do it, because this is your thing.
Let's just do it in 3, be done.
And just do each one in its own motion.
All right.
Okay.
Does that work?
That works.
All right. What time?
Ooh, 8:58.
I did it.
Look at
I
you.
did it.
I'm so proud of you.
I did it. Without having my watch on me.